chapter 16, the book by Chinua Achebe, read for you by Weirdo for Rice. Let's go! When nearly 2 years later, Obedika paid another visit to his friend in exile, the circumstances were less happy. The missionaries had come to Umofia. They had built their church there, won a handful of converts, and were already sending evangelists to the surrounding towns and villages. That was a source of great sorrow to the leaders of the clan, but many of them believed that the strange faith in the white man's God would not last. None of his converts was a man whose word was heeded in the assembly of the people. None of them was a man of title. They were mostly the kind of people who were called the efulefu, worthless, empty men. The imagery of an efulefu in the language of the clan was a man who sold his machete and wore the sheath to battle. Chelo, the priestess of Agbala, called the converts the excrement of the clan, and the new faith was a mad dog that had come to eat it up. What moved Obedika to visit Okonkwo was the sudden appearance of the latter's son, Woye, among the missionaries of Umofia. "What are you doing here?" Obedika had asked when, after many difficulties, the missionaries had followed him to speak to the boy. "I am one of them," replied Woye. "How is your father?" Obedika asked, not knowing what else to say. "I don't know." "He is not my father," said Nwoye unhappily. And so Obedika went to Mbanta to see his friend, and he found that Okonkwo did not wish to speak to Nwoye. It was only from Nwoye's mother's that he heard scraps of the story. The arrival of the missionaries had caused this considerable stir in the village of Mbanta. There were 6 of them, and one was a white man. Every man and woman came out to see the white man. Stories about these strange men had grown since one of them had been killed in Abame, and his iron horse tied to the sacred silk cotton tree. And so everybody came to see the white man. It was the time of the year when everybody was at home. The harvest was over. When they had all gathered, the white man began to speak to them. He spoke through an interpreter who was an Igbo man, though his dialect was different and harsh to the ears of Mbanta. Many people laughed at his dialect and the way he used words strangely. Instead of saying myself, he always said my buttocks. But he was a man of commanding presence, and the clansmen listened to him. He said he was one of them, as they could see from his color and his language. The other 4 black men were also his brothers, although one of them did not speak Igbo. The white man was also their brother because they were all sons of God. And he told them about this new God, the creator of all the world and all the men and women. He told them that they worshipped false gods, gods of wood and stone. A deep murmur went through the crowd when he said this. He told them that the true God lived on high, and that all men, when they died, went before him for judgment. Evil men and all the heathen who, in their blindness, bowed to wood and stone, were thrown into a fire that burned like palm oil. But good men who worshipped the true God lived forever in his happy kingdom. We have been sent by this great God to ask you to leave your wicked ways and false gods and turn to him, so that you may be saved when you die, he said. "Your buttocks understand our language," said someone lightheartedly, and the crowd laughed. "What did he say?" the white man asked his interpreter. But before he could answer, another man asked a question. "Where is the white man's horse?" he asked. The Igbo evangelists consulted among themselves and decided that the man probably meant bicycle. They told the white man, and he smiled benevolently. "Tell them," he said, "that I shall bring many iron horses when we have settled down among them. Some of them will even ride the iron horse themselves." This was interpreted to them, but very few of them heard. They were talking excitedly among themselves because the white man had said he was going to live among them. They had not thought about that. At this point, an old man said he had a question. "Which is this God of yours?" he asked. "The goddess of the earth, the god of the sky, Amadiora, or the thunderbolt, or what?" The interpreter spoke to the white man, and he immediately gave his answer. "All the gods you have named are not gods at all. They are gods of deceit, who tell you to kill your fellows and destroy innocent children. There is only one true God, and he has the earth, the sky, you and me, and all of us." "If we leave our gods and follow your God," asked another man, "who will protect us from the anger of our neglected gods and ancestors?" Your gods are not alive and cannot do you any harm, replied the white man. They are pieces of wood and stone. When this was interpreted to the men of Mbanta, they broke into derisive laughter. These men must be mad, they said to themselves. How else could they say that Annie and Amadiora were harmless? And Idemili and Wugu too? And some of them began to go away. Then the missionaries burst into song. It was one of those gay and rollicking tunes of evangelism which had the power of plucking at silent and dusty chords in the heart of an Igbo man. The interpreter explained each verse to the audience, some of whom now stood enthralled. It was a story of brothers who lived in darkness and in fear, ignorant of the love of God. It told of one sheep out on the hills, away from the gates of God, and from the tender shepherd's care. After the singing, the interpreter spoke about the Son of God, whose name was Yesu Christi. Okonkwo, who only stayed in the hope that it might come to chasing the men out of the village or whipping them, now said, You told us with your own mouth that there was only one God. Now you talk about his son? He must have a wife then, the crowd agreed. I did not say he had a wife, said the interpreter, somewhat lamely. Your buttocks said he had a son, said the joker. So he must have a wife, and all of them must have buttocks. The missionary ignored him and went on to talk about the Holy Trinity. At the end of it, Okonkwo was fully convinced that the man was mad. He shrugged his shoulders and went away to tap his afternoon palm wine. But there was a young lad who had been captivated. His name was Moye, Okonkwo's first son. It was not the mad logic of the Trinity that captivated him. He did not understand it. It was the poetry of the new religion. Something felt in the marrow. The hymn about brothers who sat in darkness and in fear seemed to answer a vague and persistent question that haunted his young soul. The question of the twins crying in the bush, and the question of Ikemefuna, who was killed. He felt a relief within as the hymn poured into his parched soul. The words of the hymn were like drops of frozen rain melting into the dry palate of his panting earth. Nwoye's hollow mind was greatly puzzled. And that is the end of chapter 16 of the book Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. Read for you by Weirdo. Thank you.